the distinguished minister from Israel, Mr. Ariel, the water resource minister, Umaji, the chief minister of Madhya Pradesh, Shri Shivraj Singh Chauhan, the agriculture minister, Shri Radha Mohan Singh ji, rural development, Shri Chaudhary Virendra Singh ji, environment, Shri Prakash Javadekar ji, Sawan Lal ji, the secretary, Shashi Shekhar ji, ministers from different state governments, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, let me express my gratitude to Umaji and her entire team, first for having organized this Water Week and having invited me to associate with this. She was, of course, gracious enough to thank everybody, but in effect, her department seems to hold the key. Water is one of the greatest gifts of nature to mankind. Without water, without air, human life would itself become meaningless, maybe non-existent. And therefore, conservation of that water and optimum utility of that water for preservation of whatever else exists is absolutely necessary. If we didn't preserve and conserve this water, if we did not have this resource, there'll be a fiasco in the Environment Ministry. There will be the greatest ever challenge in the Agricultural Ministry. Rural development would be incomplete. And of course, its spiral effect on finance would itself be extremely adverse and challenging. If you look at the nature of our economy today, we are doing reasonably well as far as services are concerned. And services is probably the largest sector of the economy. India's potential, even in the midst of global slowdown, is to grow at 9 to 10% in terms of services. Even though there is a demand problem all over the world, manufacturing sector is slowly picking up. What was most challenging in the last 2 years was the fact that we had less than adequate monsoon. As a result, our agricultural growth was either flat or it grew very marginally. Now, it is not that agricultural's contribution to the GDP itself declined, but it had its own impact on services and manufacturing also, because it impacted on the purchasing power of 55% of India's population. So across the board, products which are used in rural areas, from cement to steel for house building, tractors, two-wheelers, you could see an adverse impact on each one of them. And therefore, for India's agriculture to grow, it's absolutely necessary if India's economy is to grow. And for India's agricultural to grow, the key is held by water. And it's not merely agriculture. It's a country blessed with hundreds of rivers. And all over the world, civilizations came up on the banks of rivers. Townships were established there. Villages are established where ponds of water exist. And we have to admit that we have not been fair in conserving them. You travel to any city in the world, any of the historic cities, the river has a very important role in the life of the city. The most expensive real estate of that city is the one which faces the water body. Normally they call it the Bay Area. And the entire cultural life of the city is around that river, and that adds to the beauty of the city. It also provides drinking water to that city. Now, if we look across the country, barring a few, many of our rivers are dry, we have not been able to conserve them. During monsoon, some overflow, creating floods, and you have drought in some other parts of the country. Industries require water, it has to be recycled. And therefore, if there is no resource available, industrialization in terms of several of the growth itself suffers. And of course, absolutely essential for life is drinking water. Now, all mature civilizations and countries have now reached a situation where tap water is a drinking water. In many parts of the world where you travel, you are advised that tap water is a safe water, please drink it. I have in India come across only one place. The gift city which is coming up in Gandhinagar, Gujarat, is now based on this model that tap water is drinking water. Nowhere else have I seen this experience. And then, of course, you have the biggest challenge of needing this water and conserving it for agriculture itself. Now, irrigation strictly is a state subject. It's not a central list subject. But the amount of challenge is so large that we can't expect state governments alone to fight this challenge. An experience of several states has shown where growth has taken place rapidly. Investment in irrigation almost gets you immediate results. If you create physical infrastructure in terms of highways, roads, railways, ports, airports, power, before it can contribute to growth and manufacturing, the impact will always be there, but it will be slow. It will take a couple of seasons, a couple of years before the impact is felt. But irrigation is one area. If you invest in irrigation now and create that facility, you almost feel the impact in the next season. And therefore, those states which have invested in irrigation have actually added to the growth process of those states. If you look at states like Punjab and Haryana, which historically had the advantage of the canal system and being close to the snowbound areas of north, inadequate rain doesn't impact them so adversely, because the canal system itself has made irrigation possible. Everything is not necessarily rain-fed. But of late, experience of several states has shown that states which have invested in irrigation, Gujarat invested in irrigation, and they created thousands and thousands of ponds. Then the impact of Narmada was that they were able to transport water to the scarcity areas of Saurashtra and Kutch. Their agricultural growth shot up. Madhya Pradesh, the Honorable Chief Minister is here, is a living example of transporting water from one part of the state to the other. I always have said this in his presence, and even when he's not there. Madhya Pradesh became the first state which has knocked off the M out of the Bimaru states. And it hasn't taken a generation to do that. It's happened in the last 8 to 10 years. And one of the bases on which Madhya Pradesh did was, it created a network of roads, it set up power plants, had a good road network where the worst one existed, power became easily available, and water by various methods got transported from one part of the state to the other. So dry regions like the Malwa region now have the benefit of water. They are experimenting this otherwise. And there have been years in which Madhya Pradesh's agricultural growth has even touched as high as 22% in a year. Now 22% growth in agriculture in a year. Now last year was substantially a drought year. There was also hailstorm which adversely impacted the crop. But the effect of that has been that notwithstanding all these factors, the year which has ended on 31st of March this year, Madhya Pradesh will still register a significant growth in agriculture because of this infrastructure of irrigation they have created. Telangana has done it. And recently, after the elections in the last 22-23 months, in almost a 100-day campaign, the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, Shri Chandrababu Naidu, has connected 2 rivers in Andhra Pradesh. And the effect of that is going to be felt. And when their project, the Polavaram project, actually becomes fully implemented, those dry areas of Anantapur and others which have absolutely no water are going to be hugely impacted by it. And therefore, we decided this year that under various heads, though it's a state subject, the center will stand behind and give a push to the states. And therefore, the Water Resource Ministry has decided that several unfinished projects will be completed this year. Under 5 or 6 different heads in the budget, we have now contributed the center's little contribution to irrigation. Pradhan Mantri Sinchai Yojana, the NABARD has been told to create a special fund for large projects, and that fund is going to support a large number of irrigation projects. Under various heads, monies are being given in order to support irrigation. And the object of the entire exercise is that even when you have adverse monsoon conditions, the rain-fed areas don't starve, they still have the benefit of a good agricultural crop, and that is going to be the essence. You will have a contribution being made by agriculture to India's economy, and therefore one of our basic targets today is to make sure that the incomes of rural population double over the next few years. Now, if that is to double, these are various instrumentalities which we are using to make sure that resources are fed into the rural areas. So you are doing it by way of interest subvention. You are doing it by way of increased spending on Manrega, and Manrega is now being linked to creation of ponds. You are doing so by making sure that the balance 18,000 villages are all electrified. We are making sure by increasing the grant to the Gramin Sadak Yojana by 3 times, so that by 2019 not a single village is left which is not connected by road. An emphasis on rural housing, on irrigation, and probably the most attractive ever scheme in history for crop insurance. So you pay only a minuscule amount, the state government and the central government contributes the rest, and your entire crop then is insured. In the event of a damage, the farmer is not left to destitution and suicide. He at least gets enough money from the insurance to redeem his expense, some livelihood. It is a huge challenge. And therefore, even when Umaji has been gracious enough to thank others, I think the others depend on the performance of her ministry. Whether it's rural development or it's agriculture or finance. And I'm sure the Water Resource Ministry having taken this great initiative, and we are extremely grateful to the Honorable Minister from Israel who's here. Israel has been a global leader in technology in this, in more than one area. And this is one area we need the entire technology to make sure that we are able to preserve, conserve, and then grow and grow faster. I thank you very much, and I wish this conference a great success.